the squishy squish is not squishy. Yeah, so that's my short summary of it. Squishy switches are not squishy, but it's actually not bad. Hi guys, welcome to another video. Today we'll be reviewing this. So this is the squishy Hall effect switch. So it's the sort of like the latest Hall effect switch that is well released by another fellow influencer in Singapore. Released by, well, not really just released. I mean, I would say jointly developed by Squashy Boy, which is one of the biggest keyboard influencers and YouTubers in Singapore, along with Pantheon, Pantheon Keys, which is their, the company that he partnered with to develop this squishy Hall effect switch. Because in his original video, which I will, let's go here. So this is original video that was just released like 1 week ago, where he officially announced the release of the squishy switch, and I actually ordered through that video, which is you will click on the video link there. You'll be directed to Pantheon Keys, which is the official partner of Squashy Boy for this particular switch. It has 6 reviews, not that great, but well, I mean, this is my official review of it. Okay, so going back to it is that, yeah, so Squashy Boy released his Hall effect switch, and I'm here to test actually how good it is, because I bought 70 of it and I fit it into my Hall effect keyboard and see how good it is compared to my default switches. And my initial review of this, I mean, my impressions of this so far, 3 days in that I've been using this is good, and I'll probably be using this as my main Hall effect switch for my Hall effect keyboard until I get a better one with better switches. But otherwise, actually, my review so far is in that this is a pretty good Hall effect switch, probably one of the best in the market. Okay, let's move on to a bit more context. So Squashy Boy released this switch, and I want to see what the difference is. So what I'm comparing it against is on my Nano68 Pro. So this is my Nano68 Pro. Let me disconnect it. Yep. So this is the Nano68 Pro that I'm comparing it in. Yep. And I'll also do a comparison later against normal mechanical switches in my Evo80 Mechanical Keyboard. So this is the keyboard already with the squishies installed. So previously, what switch was in this keyboard is, let me go to the product page again. Unfortunately for, well, Madlions is a Chinese company. They don't really have a very detailed illustration of what switch this is. Maybe let me shrink my face here. Mine is this, the one with the green bottom housing and with a white stem. So I suppose mine is the Magnetic Switch Pro that's listed on the Madlions website. So I'll call this I think it's made by TTC, so let's call it the TTC Magnetic Switch Pro, because there's no other name for it. So mine is a TTC Magnetic Switch Pro as compared to what I'm using now, which is Squashy Boy's squishy switch. Well, I'll include them. Let me include a sound profile of comparing these two switches first. Now let's compare the sound profile of our TTC magnetic switches, which is by default in my Nano68 Pro, to the squishy Hall effect switches. Okay, so these are the TTC magnetic switches. And then these are the squishy Hall effect switches. In my opinion, the squishy Hall effect switches are definitely more talky compared to the TTC magnetic switches. The TTC magnetic switches have a lighter pitch, but they sound a lot more flat. They don't have that torque in their sound profile, whereby the squishy Yep, if I press harder, you can start to hear the torque in it. whereby even if I press hard on the TTC Magnetic, it just sounds a lot flatter. Okay, so after you've heard the sound profile, you will know that it's not bad. So there is some improvement in sound, especially like if you look at the original TTC Hall effect switch, even though it is a closed bottom switch, which is similar to the Squishy HE. Let me bring close up. So the TTC Magnetic Pro switch, along with the Squishy HE, both have closed bottoms, but yet the Squishy Hall effect sounds a lot talkier as compared to the TTC Magnetic Pro, which sounds a lot flatter. Like there's no distinct talk to the sound profile. I really don't know how they've managed to get such a nice sound profile out of this, because later you'll see me compare to the mechanical switch, a mechanical linear switch I have on hand. The differences are not like they're not similar at all. They're actually quite stark differences, but I think Squashy Boy as well as Pantheon Works has done really well to try and recreate the sound profile of a normal mechanical switch, and I hope this will sort of like inspire other copycats or other companies to improve upon the design of Hall effect switches to more or less replicate the nice sound profile of mechanical switches. But overall, in terms of like function, how does it feel for gaming? There's no negative impact to gaming at all. So this is the website, which is the Madlions website, the web-based software that you access. So once I actually put the Squishy Hall effect switches in, it was able to detect instantly. I didn't even need to do a calibration, even though there is a calibration, I believe, under like performance. Yeah, there is a calibration setting here that I need to do, which is you include this, you click start calibration and you have to press the various keys. But even before I did the calibration, when I put the Squishy switches in, it was able to detect straight away, and it was able to detect the varying, like the magnetic length, like how much you push it in, it was able to detect. So like this, like if you push it a little bit, it can able to detect a bit. So even before calibration, it is already able to detect it. But of course, before I went gaming, I did the calibration as well. So after calibration, there's no issues at all. So I would say performance-wise, the Squishy Hall effect switch performs the same as any other magnetic switch out there. I don't think there's a difference or performance benefit to any of the other magnetic switches. But mostly the benefit of this is the sound profile, and it sounds a lot better. So right now, in terms of if you have heard the sound comparison earlier, I definitely, I mean, it is pretty, sound is pretty subjective, but I definitely do feel that the sound of the Squishy switches are a lot better than the TTC one, which sounds a lot flatter. And the other main benefit is the stem wobble. So let me go back to this. In the, okay, let me try and view. In here, there is a lot more stem wobble. Okay, yeah, you can see the stem wobble here. So you can see the significant stem wobble of the TTC Magnetic Pro switches. When we go to the Squishy, let me try and get a side profile. Can I get it to autofocus? Okay, yeah, so it's autofocusing. You see I'm trying to wobble it, but you can see that the stem doesn't wobble as much. Actually, it's pretty minimal wobble. I would say the wobble is comparable to many of the good mechanical switches, the non-Hall effect, the good linear switches that we have in the market now. It is very minimal wobble, very stable. So in terms of typing, experience, it is fantastic. Like the typing experience on a non-wobbly switch, it makes it feels a lot better. Like I mean, we probably cannot hear the difference or see the difference, but as a person that's typing on it, you can actually feel it. And to have switches that feel a lot more stable gives you such a much more pleasant typing experience. So I think in terms of sound and feel, this is probably the main reason why this will be my main Hall effect switch moving forward. But how does it compare to like regular mechanical switches? Because if you've seen no videos from like Louis Toh, for example, you'll probably be aware that like TMR keyboards are actually in the market now. You can actually buy TMR keyboards from I think I think Arco has them, and what's the other TMR company? I can't remember off my head, but basically TMR keyboards are here, and the benefit of TMR keyboards is that you can actually mix and match Hall effect switches with mechanical switches, so that your WASD, the ones that you use for gaming, you can put Hall effect switches on it, and the rest of the keys such as your F-roll, your Afro, or your other alphabets that you don't use for gaming, you can actually fit mechanical switches on it so that you still get the mechanical sound profile. So TMR keyboards are here, so I want to see how does it compare with a normal mechanical keyboard in terms of sound and feel. Okay, so we're just testing the sound profile of our Oat mechanical switch as compared to the Squishy HE switch. Let's see whether it picks up. We'll see whether it picks up in the mic. This is the Squishy Hall effect. Sounds pretty good to me. This is the Oat mechanical. The Oat mechanical sounds, the Oat linear mechanical sounds like a higher pitched, whereby the Squishy HE has a lower sounding talk to it. So here, let me bring it up. Okay, here I have my Evo80. So Evo80 is obviously a normal mechanical keyboard. There's no Hall effect to it. And the switch, this Hall effect switch, which is a Squishy, which I fit here, will not work in a mechanical keyboard because it's non-TMR. But I just wanted to see how it sounds. Like, so off the, this is the mechanical switch, and this is the Squishy. Like, both of them sound pretty close, right? So let's give a little bit more context to what switches are in here. So what I'm comparing with is I have this Evo80 here, and the switch I have here is the Keygeek Oat Linear switch, which will combine with our polycarbonate plate, PP plate. So top housing is PA12, stem is LY2. Okay, you can see all these stats here, but basically it's describing the material that they use to manufacture the various parts of the switch. It is a linear switch with a single stage spring, factory looped, and we're comparing it with Squashy Boy's Squishy HE switch, which is also a linear switch. Obviously all magnetic switches are linear. I think, I'm not super sure whether there are tactile magnetic switches out there. Nylon, so on and so forth. So the material is a little bit different. Like top housing is polycarbonate on the Squishy, whereby in our Oat Linear, the top housing is PA12, a different kind of plastic. So bottom housing for the Squishy is nylon, whereby for our Oat switch, the bottom housing is P3, also probably just another kind of plastic. Stem material for the Squishy is POM stem, whereby for the stem material for our Oat switch is LY2, also another kind of different kind of plastic. So there is some difference in the material, and I'll probably cut to a side video of a more detailed comparison. Like I'll do a disassembly of it, and you can see it right here. Okay, so we're just testing the sound profile of our Oat mechanical switch as compared to the Squishy HE switch. Let's see whether it picks up. We'll see whether it picks up in the mic. This is the Squishy Hall effect. Sounds pretty good to me. This is the Oat mechanical. The Oat mechanical sounds, the Oat linear mechanical sounds like a higher pitched, whereby the Squishy HE has a lower sounding talk to it. So to dismantle the switches, obviously you need a switch opener, which is something like this. This is a key switch opener, and this makes opening a switch really easy. Like let me try and demonstrate it here. Like you match. So this is the Keygeek Oat switch. Try and wait. Wait. Okay, so you gotta be able to fit it in like this, and just push down. Yep. In the case of this Keygeek Oat switch, or most mechanical switches that I've modded, once you push it down, the spring will instantly push the top housing out, because the spring is strong enough and the top housing is kind of light, so you will see that it is dismantled here. Right, maybe let me angle it towards the camera. Yep, so it's dismantled. Okay, then I'll just quickly reassemble it. For the Squishy HE, somehow it is a lot harder to dismantle. So this is a assembled Squishy HE, and it fits inside the mold pretty well, but when I try to push it down, you can see that the spring inside, I think because maybe the spring is a lot lesser force. Let me see, magnetic travel, operating force 50 gram. It doesn't say how strong the spring is, so maybe the spring is a lot weaker. It doesn't push the top housing out. Like I have to maybe push the stem down and try and force the top housing to separate by pushing the stem down, and you can see a little bit of gap here. I probably need to wedge in between, something in between my fingernails to wedge it to try and dismantle it. Yeah, so it's a much more effort involved. Yeah, finally we dismantled it. Okay, and yeah, so this is the dismantled Squishy Hall effect switch. You can see, yeah, so this is the what do you call it, the actuator or something like that, with the Manex in here. You can see the Manex, and the spring is pretty different. So let's compare. So we already disassembled it. The Squishy one has a similar bottom housing as compared to our mechanical Oat switch from Keygeek, but the springs are pretty different. First one is, if you notice the spring for the Squishy, it is pretty big. Maybe let me disable the RGB here. It is pretty distracting. Okay, so for this, you can see that the spring for the Squishy is pretty thick, whereby if you compare the spring for our mechanical switch, it is pretty small, as in it's a lot narrower. This is due to the stem design. If you look at the stem design for the Squishy switch, it's a lot wider, and let me bring the stem design for the mechanical switch. So the stem design for the mechanical switch is a lot narrower. Like you can see a bigger like spring diameter for the HE switch. This is due to the fact that the stem has to contain the magnet. So this is the stem of our Hall effect switch from Squishy, and you can see that the magnet is a sizable magnet, and it has to be a standard size magnet, because all the Hall effect switches have this standardized magnet. Whereby for a mechanical switch stem, it is a lot smaller. You can see the stem. So let me bring the stem and compare again. So you can see that the stem of our Hall effect switch is at least twice as thick. Okay, bring it to camera. At least twice as thick as the stem for our mechanical switch, which is a pretty thin stem in comparison because it doesn't need to contain any manics. It just needs to sort of like be a guiding post for the slider. Oh, sure. So let's call this a slider. So yeah, just need to guide the slider down. And then in the other dimensions of it, if you look at the sides, yep, it looks different as well, right? So our Hall effect slider is mostly dominated by the center stem, whereby for the mechanical switch, the center stem is a lot narrower. And I think all this difference in construction of how the stem works does contribute to the difference in sound. Now let's look at the bottom housing. So as mentioned earlier, yeah, the spring diameter for our Hall effect switch is a lot wider, a lot bigger. For both, if you look at the bottom of the housings, both have a sealed bottom housing, but for the mechanical switch, you can see that the bottom housing kind of let me bring it in focus. I don't know whether the camera can focus this. The bottom housing kind of juts out, so you can see that it juts out on the bottom. Autofocus. Okay, so it kind of juts out at the bottom, but for our Hall effect switch, the bottom is flat. So this might contribute to another difference in the sound profile. Let me bring it there again. Yeah, so okay, it somehow can't really focus on. Yeah, the autofocus somehow just can't pick up on the mechanical switch. Maybe it picks up here. Okay. So the bottom housing of our mechanical switch is pretty different. It juts out compared to the flat part of the Hall effect switch. So this might also contribute to the difference in the sound profile. Okay, so after you've seen the disassembly and sort of like the sound comparison without the keycaps, now let's do a sound comparison with the keycaps in it. Okay, so you can see Squishy here, and I will fit this in. Yep, so it's not too bad, right? You can see the shine through. So this is a south-facing switch, a sound-facing like switch socket, whereby the RGB is southwards, and you can see that the shine through RGB area for the switch allows the RGB to shine through pretty well. So let's put the keycaps on it. Okay, so the DF is Squishy. So DF is Squishy, while the GH is our normal Oat linear switch. So let's do a sound comparison. So all this is the normal Oat linear switch on a polycarbonate plate. And the DF keys are the Squishy. Sounds pretty similar, right? I would say the Squishy has a slightly higher pitch sound profile. There's more clack to it, whereby for the Oat Linears, there's more talk to it. So it sounds, the Oat Linear sounds a bit on a lower sound profile. This is Squishy, and then the AS is again Oat Linear. So it's more, the Oat Linears are more talky, whereby the Squishies have a slightly higher sound profile, it's a little bit more clacky. But still, this is probably like not much different from a regular mechanical switch. It's just a slightly different sound profile, but I would think the Squishies actually sound just as good as one of the top, like some of the top mechanicals. I would not say top, but some of the like average mechanical linear switches out there. So all in all, I think it's great. I think the Squishy switches can probably fit really well on a TMR keyboard. Like if you get a TMR keyboard, you can probably change all of the TMR switches to a Squishy, and it will sound probably the same as your mechanical switches, maybe with a slightly different sound profile, depending on your preference of whether you want a lower pitch talk or you want a higher pitch clack. Other than that, I would think that if Hall effect switches actually improve in terms of their mounting, because like for example this Nano68 Pro, right, when they dismantle it, I realized it's just a very basic tray mounted keyboard with very minimal padding. There's only insulation between the plate, so it was aluminum plate. So between the aluminum plate as well as the PCB, there is a hard rubber insulation, so very tough black rubber, which is not soft at all. It's like pretty hard to compress. And as well as on the bottom housing, like inside the case here, there is very thin silicon. So there's only 2 layers of dampening in this tray mounted case. So it's also tray mounted, so it's not gasket mounted. So hence the sounds of this keyboard is a little bit on the harsher end. Yeah, so it's not as nice sounding as some of the good mechanical keyboards, such as my Evo80, which is gasket mounted, has multiple layers of foam. I think at least 2 layers of foam, and there's also foam insulation between the polycarbonate plate as well as the PCB. So I guess as more Hall effect keyboard makers come with like better like come up with Hall effect keyboards with like gasket mount, better foam dampening between like the plate and the PCB. Maybe they start to use polycarbonate plates and all that. Then probably with the combination of switches like the Squishy switch, the sound profile of Hall effect keyboards will improve drastically. So much so that they will probably catch up to normal mechanical keyboards. And from then on, I would think, well, Hall effect keyboards are probably gonna take over the gaming market, because they no longer have the disadvantage of sounding worse or feeling worse than regular premium mechanical keyboards, like such as your Rainy 75, your Evo80s, like your Womia RD75s and all that. Imagine similarly feeling and similarly sounding Hall effect switch that performs better in gaming, because you can use your SOCD and all the gaming features. Then there's technically no downside to using a Hall effect switch, maybe other than the price. So the Hall effect keyboard makers also have to generally lower the price, and I think the price will generally get lower as more and more competition come into the market. So more makers like Arco, maybe Womia, Madlions and so on, as they do Hall effect keyboards with better and better dampening, with more complex mounting systems, maybe more aluminium casing, and they go into mass production, competition comes in, they need to lower their margins. So they lower margins, the price gets lower for the consumer and all that. So yeah, as more of these so-called premium Hall effect keyboards get more and more affordable, yeah, I think it's a good sign. So in summary, the Squishy switch is really good. I think sound profile wise, it's actually comparable to a mechanical switch, mechanical linear switches. Maybe a little bit of difference between the clack, like it's a little bit higher pitch than a linear switch, which is more of a lower pitch talk sound. But I think it can be improved, and yeah, so it looks promising. And that's it for this review. So we'll see you guys in the next one.